Hey there, Toonami faithful, and welcome back aboard Toonami Absolution, where we talk about the shows that made us us and the shows that made you you. Once again, we are your hosts. My name is Alyx.
I'm Sam.
I'm John. Yes, two more episodes of Bebop, 11 and 12, Toys in the Attic, and Jupiter Jazz Part 1, both of which were shown on Adult Swim on October 7th, 2001. So, yes, American fans were left on a cliffhanger here.
Yeah, just like we will leave you.
Yes, it worked out quite nicely.
Yeah. Toys in the Attic. This is one of my favorite episodes of the entire series. Because it's funny, two, it's basically Alien on the Bebop. It's just magnificently, I mean, this episode in particular I find to be very well animated. Just in those like quiet moments throughout this is also I think the only episode where we get a true sense of scale of the Bebop, at least in terms of its interior.
Yeah.
There's a lot to love in this one.
I I love toy. I also love Toys in the Attic. It's absolutely one of my favorites too. And one of the things I genuinely enjoy about it is how how good this episode how well this episode replicates the feeling of isolation for all of the characters as they're being approached by the horrible monster, and the reveal is so good. The reveal is the best thing ever.
And so gross. Yeah, this episode's fun. It's reference overload. Like the setup is Alien. We get a lot of Star Trek references with Jet doing his Stardate bit at the start. We get Star Trek sounds and Spike's on the bridge. We get a whole 2001 homage with the Waltz the Flower sequence. Spike arms himself like it's in Commando. We get the close-ups. Here's every film we like. You're gonna enjoy every single one.
So good. And Ed is also fantastic in this episode. What we get of Ed is so good. Like peak Ed.
It's so funny, this whole thing. It's not really
Yeah.
caring.
But yes, the crew of the
Also, the
Bebop.
ending. Can we talk about the end, like the ending preview for the next episode, which is narrated by Ed? Like, oh,
And then
that's
they
it.
all
Everybody's
died.
dead.
That is one of my favorite gags in all of Bebop because look at what footage they're putting that over. There is so many shots of Vicious in that. So they're clearly messing with the audience by having this comedy skit play out where they think, wait, that's Vicious. Oh. It's like it's this immediate, like sudden, like gut punch of like, oh, that was fun. Oh, something bad is coming, isn't it?
Yeah, very serious, angry Spike clips, like smashing people's masks. And oh, look, there's Vicious with and oh, somebody just got shot. Okay. Oh,
And
but
then
yeah.
Radical Edward.
Yeah.
Even I note the fact they specifically call Jupiter Jazz Part 1 all the time. Is that it's something we haven't broken the seal on yet, but you'll notice a lot of shows will never call something Part 1.
Yeah.
Because it implies that you're not going to get a whole story. But here they're very much using that to next week bad things are happening.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Prepare to be sad.
Yeah.
One sequence I really like in this episode, one of my favorite sequences in Toys in the Attic is Faye in the bath, and just how tense that scene is with her leg dangling over the side and the slowly encroaching camera. There's a lot of really good horror tricks in this episode, and
One of my
especially with the camera work.
Yeah, one of my favorites is when they're testing out the infrared goggles and Ed runs away and you see the parasite skitter by and Spike's just like, "Oh, that's weird." Like we know what it is vaguely, but yeah, it's just kind of like those little they're for a funny episode, yeah. They're really good at dialing up the when Spike realizes he has to check out the fridge, like just the sense of dread as it pans in on the fridge door.
Honestly, if you cut out a few Edward lines in this, you would have a very effective horror film.
Yeah.
And speaking as someone who lived in a college dorm, we've all been through that horror of opening the fridge when
Oh
you
yeah.
forgot something.
Yeah. No,
And
I've had roommates that would be like, "Oh, I got leftovers. This was enough for 2 meals." And it's like, "No, man. It's gonna be one meal." Because you're never gonna touch it again.
it will
It's gonna be
become a
one.
blessing to Nurgle.
It
Yeah.
will it will become penicillin eventually.
Yeah. one of my favorite funny bits, it's just such a small like aside in Toys in the Attic, is when Spike finally corners the first parasite, and he shoots. First off, he shoots it. He's firing guns throughout the inside the Bebop, and then he switches to the flamethrower and he blasts it, and then it just wiggles just a little bit after that first blast. And he immediately like blasts it again.
He understands the double tap. You have to do the double tap.
Just how quick and how thorough he is after that. Like, I'm making sure you're dead.
Even then, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Not until Radical Edward gets involved. But
Yeah.
Edward eats it.
this is also a good bottle. This is also a good bottle episode. Like they'd never leave the Bebop, and I appreciate when a show can take an episode where you never change location and make it interesting. That's talent right there.
100%. 100%. Also, I always feel so sorry for Ein.
Yeah, poor Ein.
No, like we're used to seeing Jet get messed with, and Faye is our kind of, token slasher victim, to let us know that things are about to get real. But Ein didn't deserve that.
They do far too good of a job of animating a dog getting hit. It's a lot. Again, I think it's important to have that moment because I think it does sort of hammer home. This is big. Be careful.
Yeah.
And it's also I also do like how we open this episode on Faye taking Jet for all he has, and it's another reminder that Jet doesn't have much.
Oh, Jet's always going to lose. That's why he's the first person to get bit. That's
He gets Worf affected so hard in this
Yeah.
show, and I forgot how much he gets Worf affected. It's kind of wild.
He gets bankrupt on Snake Eyes, and then he's the first one down, and it's just like, oh buddy.
And doesn't see through the cheat either. I mean,
Yeah.
Spike does.
And Spike doesn't warn him. Like that's the other part of it too. Spike doesn't like interrupt to be like, "Hey man, you know she's cheating." It's like, "No. I want to see this play out."
I love that. It also gives the implication that he's played games against Faye before. And Spike is like, you should know this at this time. She cheats.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of how we met her, like in a casino kind of scamming.
Cheating.
Yeah.
I will say one thing I love about this episode is that it is, it gets written up as a silly break episode, but there's a lot of really interesting symbolism here. That game is one of them. I love how Faye, it's the whole thing of the character. Faye has a device to cheat with. That can't be cheap, yet she's always desperate for money. It's again that broken priority she has going on. And I really love sort of one of my favorites, a paper where I really like points out that this whole episode is symbolic of Spike. Because again, he had something nice, he couldn't do anything with it. He forgot about it, he lost it. And what is Spike is the fridge. He is, had something good inside him once, but it's slowly rotted away. And I also like the idea you have all these characters giving their own lessons, and none of those lessons are right.
Yeah.
They don't apply here. Again, so whatever, all these people, none of them have the correct perspective to solve this problem, which reflects how they'll handle Jupiter Jazz, which reflects how they'll handle everything going forward. They don't know what they're doing, but they're trying, goddamn, to sound like they know what's going on.
It in a weird way, there's a part of this episode that reminds me, and not in a bad way. I need to just like kind of point this out really quick. When teenagers would have internal monologues about how dark and edgy they are, like, and this is not done in a bad way. It's done in a really mature way, but it's also the characters kind of almost overestimating their own wisdom. It's interesting, and I really like that.
Yeah, it's like Jet says, you start looking for quick cash when you're out of money. What does he do? He gambles with a known cheater. Faye says, oh, it's survival of the fittest. Lets her guard down after Jet's been stung. The only one who's vaguely right is Edward. But that's Edward, and no one else can survive being Edward.
Edward's a Fooly Cooly character that broke into Cowboy Bebop, and we love them for it.
We love them for it. But I do like the resolution in this episode where it's just Radical Edward eats it. She eats the worm thing.
Yeah, and while everyone is still like suffering from like food poisoning, I guess, whatever we're calling this state, and like there's beautiful music playing and they're floating and just like
And
okay.
all of, like, their items are floating around them, like, it's beautiful.
I think it's really interesting that this is one of the only episodes we'll get a pre-written piece in Waltz of the Flowers as well.
Yeah.
I think it's really neat that that's the one piece they said, yeah, we're not going to have Kano write a new one. Waltz of the Flowers is so good for this.
Yeah. Talk about tonal whiplash going into Jupiter Jazz Part 1.
Oh,
Yeah.
I do have to ask you guys something really quickly. And so, and I know I'm skipping ahead in the episode, but this has kind of been bothering me. I have a memory of the reveal on Grimm being intersex, I believe is the implication.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing their chest in the
Oh,
initial
yeah.
release. Like
Television
I
broadcast,
remember
we
it
didn't,
being,
yeah,
They
we didn't
zoom
get them
in
breasts. We did not get them breasts.
and then I remember in the scene where he's like leaning over Faye, like they had more fog going up the side. So I remember as a kid not quite understanding how Faye got like not quite understanding what Faye was seeing because I used like I remember I was 12, so like I didn't quite put it together as a kid, but I distinctly remember that bit of censorship.
No, we pull out the Censor's two favorite tricks in broadcast of this. We zoom in shots, and then we have a very steamy bath because that's what you have when you're a naked and you have breasts. You have very steamy baths that obscure everything. You just put a few smoke grenades in there. They sell them a
But
lot.
but Grimm is intersex, right? That's what we're saying here.
Yes, they are, but unfortunately, the American broadcasting laws do not have a thing for that. I believe, what is it, the lovely people at Tumblr called it back in the day? Female presenting nipples.
But these would be male presenting because Grimm presents
Not
themselves as a
in
man.
that moment, they are nipples and they are banned because they're a woman.
Yeah,
I don't like the rules, don't come at me.
As Gren says, they are both and neither.
Yep, they are the Full Sail Uranus.
Yep.
The Full Sail Uranus. But yeah, Jupiter Jazz Part 1 is it's a big tone shift, and I really like how we're on Callisto and it's kind of this vaguely Russian all male village in the floating around Jupiter.
Yeah, and again, all the signs are in Russian with Callisto. Again, another lovely little touch that just doesn't need to be there, but just really adds to the atmosphere.
Yeah. Super bleak. We're gonna have statues that look like the cover of Tin Machine. It's gonna be great.
It also makes you kind of question like ask that question of how does a place end up with only men in it? Like how does a society continue to exist when there's no way to make more people? Like is this just a place where all the universe's incels go? Is that the implication here?
Well, being admitted, it's an outlaw cult.
Yeah,
That's why the guy's like, I have when Jet's in the bar, his first pursuit is like, there's no bounties here. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, I have a bounty because the only reason you'd be on this planet is if you had a bounty on your head because it's so cold, so inhospitable, so hard to work with. No, it's like the old thing of moving to Alaska when you're wanted because who's going to follow you? Someone's got to be really desperate.
A Breaking Bad scenario. Yeah. Or in this case, Alien 3. Kind of same vibe. I mean, so we get this shot of, you know, after we realize it's a vicious episode, Spike's demeanor completely changes for the rest of the episode as soon as Ed mentions Julia. And I think that's great. It's the most pissed off we ever see Spike so far when he's misidentified as vicious, and he's just like that for him. That breaks him.
How they animate his fighting style in that moment. So two things that I love when he leaves. Do you have that thing again of him getting really childish with Jet? They have the whole, oh, you're gonna leave, then leave. Oh, okay, I am leaving. It's so again, it's that moment Spike gets so angry he kind of regresses a little bit because he just doesn't know how to handle this. But then when he fights those guys, it is remember back up episodes like, oh, you've got to be like water. Spike was not being like water here. He was elbowing guys in the neck. He was street fighting, designed to injure people.
And it's such an interesting thing watching how quick that switch is flipped in Spike and how it's like the other thing I think is very interesting about Spike when you put him up against Vicious is that Spike is so down to earth looking in comparison to Vicious. Like Vicious has got his full like Devil May Cry outfit. He's got his big bird for some reason. He's got the sword. Like there's something very like ostentatious about Vicious, and then you have Spike who is a lot more like grounded and more like it's an outfit, but it's still like it's not a crazy outfit compared to Vicious, and
I yeah.
it's cool.
I, I've been to Asia in the plenty of times in the winter, and I see a lot of people with that Spike Spiegel puffed up winter coat.
That puffy winter coat is huge in like New York too. We just call that a North Face jacket.
No, I think it is true though. Vicious has this. Vicious, you can imagine getting dressed in the morning and thinking of what he's going to wear that for a reason, which is why he rejects the winter gear. Whereas Spike always looks like he got that jacket in a thrift store, and he's like, "Yeah, well, what the hell? This is just whatever." It's a mask, but a less deliberate one.
Yeah. Can we talk about how like this is a side of Faye we haven't really seen before? I mean, which we see more of from her as the series progresses, certainly by the end. But it's a very melancholy episode for Faye Valentine, and the most selfish she's ever. I mean, she cleans out the Bebop and basically hightails it out.
I there's one shot of Faye that I think is such a genuinely beautifully done shot of her. Like it's when Grin is in the bathroom and showering and the camera slowly is panning up her body when she's like leaning up against it's like the armoire, I think. And you see like the curvature of her in almost like a classical sculpture style for a while. Like she's her body doesn't look perfect from that angle. There's a much more like you see a little bit of like a curve to her stomach. You see her not looking as perky. Like there's it's interesting because of that visual dichotomy and she sounds so much older in this episode. She sounds tired, and
Yeah.
that's very interesting.
I think it's also should be noted in the Japanese version, they kind of foreshadow the reveal of Faye being older a lot more here. There's a few times where she like tells the bartender, "Sometimes you live too long." They kind of cut around that a little bit in the English dub. It's still there, but it's not as though. But I think it's really important, and I love when Faye is having that conversation when she's on the couch. You see the moment where she realizes that she's gone a bit too far and kind of goes back with, "What are you, a pastor?"
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I like it's sort of feeling him out. I think a little, feeling them out a little bit as well. It's like, can I continue saying this, or is this a situation where I need to go for my gut?
Well, yeah, I mean, she's straight up like, "Oh, I feel like I'm in a confession right now," you know. And if there's one that if there's two, nobody on the Bebop crew is vulnerable, but if there's two, especially, it's Spike and Faye who get a lot of kind of are forced to kind of confront some stuff in this episode in a really introspective way.
I think it's also very interesting with Faye's little fight scene that she gets, where she is fully capable of whooping all those dudes up and down. But Grin steps in and she's just like, all right, let's just go. There's something. Faye has this energy of someone who is so not self-determined and desperately tries to convey that she is. And I think Grin cuts right to it. You abandoned them before they could abandon you. She's trying to gain some control, and she never has it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a big episode, like both in terms of like where the story is going, but in how deep it goes into Spike and Faye in ways depths we haven't seen before for either of them.
there's a couple things in this episode I really like. I don't think I ever get enough sort of attention. I love the intro with Vicious and the Dragon Syndicate and Van. I think it draws this really nice line between how Spike and how Vicious operate. In that Vicious is a tough guy, but he defers to people. He's willing to play the rules in a way Spike never will. Vicious will betray you, and he will stab you in the back the second he gets the chance. but he sees a chance for money, he will play by their rules for a brief moment. Spike will never do that, and that's why he turned eventually. That's what gets him into this situation.
Yeah.
It's also interesting in the conversation early on with Vicious and Lynn, where Vicious goes, "You're gonna have to betray me. Like, that's just part of the deal." And Lynn is like, "No, it's never going to happen." And it shows you also what sets Vicious apart. Like, he is not only fully embracing the concept of betrayal, he is actively encouraging people to betray him, as opposed to Spike, who doesn't even open up those conversations or start that idea.
And it reflects back to the conversation Jet had at the start when they talk about having your weird roommates.
Yeah.
Spike, for all of his tough guy act, has basically picked up 3 orphans and is carrying them around with him. Because again, at any point, if he was Vicious, he could have thrown Ed out of the airlock and just gone, no, we're not doing this. But Spike, despite saying how much he doesn't want Ed around, how much he doesn't want Faye around, the second they go, what's his first response? I'm going to go get them back.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. You.
I also really like the gender stuff in this episode. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on. One of my favorite conversations in this episode, I may be reading too much into it, is the conversation they have with Faye about when you sneeze, turning into a fairy.
Yeah.
I think the joke is there. Faye's name comes from the Middle English Fae, which is what became fairy, e.g. There's a lot. It's a gag, but I really like the idea. You're on this planet of kind of outcasts who've got bounties, and you have this myth of you transform if no one says take care. It's kind of like you can see why that myth would form on this planet. It's the idea of like, oh, if no one's there to care for you, you end up here. You become one of these people, and you become someone else. I say that all these people are hiding their identity as having different. The bartender has a bounty, but he's become this bartender. You've got the 2 cross-dressers who are, again, I will say, surprisingly well handled. They have some elements that are probably how you wouldn't approach it today, but they are portrayed as very human as much as anyone else. They are obviously ugly, but they are not any uglier than anyone else we've seen.
It is an oddly progressive episode, right? Like in that regard. I mean, I said oddly, but I mean in terms of how early, and especially coming out of Japan at this time, how progressive it is.
Like
it's wild.
Go ahead.
Oh. No. I was just going to say, it's wild to hear a character referred to as being straight in a show. Like that, I feel, because most places treat straight as the default, you only really hear that coming from as a joke or something like that. But outright saying that, no, don't bother with him, he's straight, it's interesting, because I'm racking my brain for another time I would have heard something like that in another show, and I can't think of something.
And even Spike's reaction, because they do what would in nothing be a joke. The classic thing is like, oh, I think it's a woman, it turns out it's a man. Or, they have male features. Spike doesn't play that, laugh at them. Spike's just like, oh, but then just goes on with the conversation. Ironically, the most dated part of this episode is the very start with the native pair, which you probably these days would not have them in TPs. And, you probably wouldn't do that because just that's not really how that depiction works. Everything else, surprisingly progressive. And even that, as we've seen other things, it's by far not the worst First Nations rep you would see in this era.
Yeah. Or maybe even on the show.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Wait, I distinctly remember a Wild West themed episode later in the series, which I think we'll touch on. But yeah, this is a pivotal episode. And again, bananas. Having said that, all of that, I was kind of, I was just talking about how funny the stinger was at the end of the tease was at the end of Toys in the Attic. The stinger at the end of this episode where Jet's like, maybe it's me. Just that's I love that, where they're all talking about people that romance and stuff, and Ed's like, oh, maybe it's me, and then Jet out of nowhere.
It's very droopy dog.
Yeah.
Even that's, again, for this era, amazingly progressive. Because again, you have this idea of, oh yeah, some people display masculine qualities, some people display feminine qualities, some people display both. It's oh yeah, this is really interesting. I also really like that because I think it contrasts well with the shot of Spike on the ground
Hmm.
because there's something weirdly dreamlike about it.
Yeah, it's like almost like Denis Villeneuve nicked it for the end of Blade Runner 2049, right? It's basically functionally the same shot. It's our protagonist lying shot on the ground in the snow, looking upward. Yeah, I mean, but isn't that all? Isn't that all of Cowboy Bebop? This kind of like, is life just a dream? And the only way to get out is to get shot. There. I mean, that's how it all ends, right?
By getting shot, everyone gets lined up and shot at a certain point.
Yeah.
Don't try that hard.
No, please don't.
We are
It's
not advocating for this,
No,
children.
no,
it's
no,
not
no,
fun.
no.
Yeah, no, it's a really just well done episode. Um, there's so many just nice little touches that really help build up. Can I point out again, we have a thing of someone playing a wind instrument not being what they seem.
Yeah, that does seem to
Harmonica,
be.
now saxophone.
Yeah.
And they're very classic jazz and blues instruments too.
This idea of sort of talking to something that changes how your breath sounds, I think is really interesting in how we set this episode up.
There's also something. Okay, maybe I'm reading into it, but I think with Grin there is something very there's something very like almost seductive about Grin's existence
Oh,
that
yeah.
is so hard to quantify throughout the entire episode because Grin stands out against like the very ugly crowd that they are a part of, and it almost feels like there were a lot of ancient Greek statues that did depict intersex gods, and there is something very almost Galatea-esque about Grin in their conversations with Faye. Like Faye doesn't even know why she's opening up like that, and it's because of that inherent seduction in every movement that they make as they occupy this in between and neither space. Schrodinger's gender, as I like to call it.
And I think they do a good job with Grin. It's even as the audience, it's very hard to know how to take Grin at any point. Grin always walks this very fine line between are they antagonistic? Are they a friend? It works really well. Like in your first viewing, you'll have a lot of moments where you'll go like, "Oh, Grin's a villain." No, they're going to be a friend. They're a villain. They're a friend. It makes that last bit really interesting. I love when Grin comes out the shower and pins Faye. There is that moment in Faye's eyes, you get the impression of, I have done this before. Now the boot is on the other foot. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Or maybe we like it a little too much.
Yeah, it's like now I see why this has worked so much, and I kind of feel bad about that because I don't like when I'm the one having to deal with it.
Yeah.
Which again is Cowboy Bebop. So your actions will have consequences, and one day the boot will be on the other foot.
Yeah. It always catches up with you. You know, that's the other thing. You can't escape your past, and this episode is a big reminder of that for both, Spike and Faye. We've already seen our Jet confront. I think it's the only time Jet confronts his past in the entire series. Poor guy.
But he wraps it up in a neat bow. He's all good.
Yeah.
His trauma healed.
He threw away the watch. He threw
Yeah,
away.
he's good now. All of
Yeah.
his fetters are gone.
All
He can die in
better.
He can die in peace. Who needs therapy?
Hey, he threw away the watch and got a hobby in his bonsai trees.
Yeah.
I think that's it's one of those important things to bring up is that Edward and Jet are the two only guys on this ship who have hobbies.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Spike kind of does his kung fu practice. That's a very practical thing, and Faye just scams people.
Yeah.
I think it is an interesting dynamic they have because of that. Like Jet can turn it off. Spike can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Who needs better help when you have bonsai tree?
Yeah.
They are very good. Very
Very
That's
soothing.
that should be our sponsor. We should be sponsored by BetterHelp. And you can get
Hey, do you guys want to get your mental health under control with Cowboy Bebop?
Yeah. Yeah.
you want us to sell your data to a third party company?
Hey, my therapist is great.
Oh, these episodes are just great. I think I'm always sad about Toys in the Attic a little bit because I think it gets written up as the silly episode. And it is. It's like the 8th episode. but I think it does so much more. It's not just the random comedy episode we're doing fun. It sets this. Jupiter Jazz doesn't hit as well if you haven't had that moment with, Toys in the Attic. I think we should really bring up, this is probably my final thought, I'm going to go on too long,
Yeah.
how these two episodes contrast. Spike has his moment with the gun. He wins the day by firing and shooting something. He tries it again here. Doesn't work as well the second time.
Sure don't.
The gun feels like a protection for Spike sometimes, but like with Faye, with seduction, sometimes it's on the other foot, and then it's a lot less enjoyable.
Yeah. Nobody likes being shot or seduced. What about you, Sam? What's your final thought?
I mean, it's great. I mean, we go off arguably the we don't get too many fun. We get some fun Cavalier episodes after Jupiter Jazz, but they're not as overt. I mean, there's one that I'm thinking about, but they aren't quite as overt as Toys in the Attic ever again. So it's always kind of almost bittersweet, because it's like now with Jupiter Jazz Part 1, we're really starting our countdown through the back half of the series. So yeah, it's these are both very strong episodes, but strong in very interesting and different ways.
I agree. Toys in the Attic is fantastic. It is a very fun episode. It also has some great horror. If you changed up like just one or two things, it would just be a great horror short film. Like that's just really what it would be. And with Jupiter Jazz Part 1 builds so much good tension throughout the episode and doesn't release any of it in this episode. All of it gets back-ended to the second episode, and I really love the idea of how many people back in the early 2000s just got like absolutely destroyed for a week while they waited for this to update, because we have streaming now. But yeah, these episodes are fantastic, and they really are where the turning point happens in Bebop to get to the second half. But speaking of second halves, that means that we are pulling into our final destination. That's right, it is time to disembark from Toonami Absolution. We want to thank you once again for joining us and talking about the shows that made us us and the shows that made you you. We are your hosts. My name is Alyx.
I'm Sam.
And I'm John.
And we'll see you next time. Bang.